After the recent incident in which more than 300 South Korean citizens were detained during a large-scale immigration raid at a Hyundai plant in the U.S. state of Georgia, the situation surrounding Korean corporations in the United States is quickly moving beyond a simple episode. Last week, the final flights carrying deported workers landed in Seoul, and images of their return instantly spread across major global media outlets. In South Korea, the event caused shock. Millions saw for the first time that even giants like Hyundai are not shielded from the arbitrariness of the American bureaucratic system. According to information published by Yonhap, citing anonymous government sources, several South Korean corporations have begun discussing plans to scale back production capacity in the United States and relocate part of their factories to China and Southeast Asian countries. Among them are not only Hyundai, but also Samsung Electronics, LG, and SK Hynix, which play key roles in the global microelectronics and automotive markets. In Seoul, it is increasingly said that American jurisdiction has become too toxic for long-term investments. Financial Times emphasizes in its analysis that the decision to potentially move production is not just an emotional reaction to the raid in Georgia. It is part of a broader reassessment of U.S. economic policy marked by rising tariffs, increasing pressure on foreign companies, and tougher immigration laws. For corporations dependent on thousands of immigrant workers, this creates unacceptable risks. Insiders claim that Hyundai's leadership is considering a gradual withdrawal of up to 40% of its U.S. operations over the next 3 years, with China chosen as the primary destination for new investments. Equally telling was the statement from a senior Samsung manager, given anonymously to the Korea Herald. The United States is no longer a predictable market. Every month, new rules are introduced that put long-term projects at risk. China, by contrast, offers stability, tax incentives, and direct government support. If the situation does not change, we will have no choice. Economists note that South Korea's steps could mark a turning point for the global economy. In the early 2000s, the United States was the primary destination for foreign investment, but now the trend is reversing. The Korea International Trade Association, in a recent report, warned, the American market is losing its status as a safe haven for production. The politicization of the economy and internal contradictions are turning it into a source of instability. The reaction from labor unions was especially strong. KMWU, which represents tens of thousands of Hyundai and Kia workers, declared it would not allow employees to be sent to the U.S. under the threat of humiliating raids and deportations. Demonstrations took place in Seoul, demanding that the government protect citizens and reconsider trade relations with Washington. The influential newspaper Hankyoreh compared the raid at the Hyundai plant to the public humiliation of an ally, stressing that such actions undermine the foundations of the U.S.-Korea partnership. Washington, however, continues to defend its stance. Officials from Immigration and Customs Enforcement stated that the raid was purely a law enforcement action and that no one, not even large corporations, is above the law. Yet experts believe this rhetoric has only deepened distrust. After all, it was the White House itself that had strongly encouraged Hyundai and Samsung to invest billions in creating U.S. jobs, only for these companies to now face harsh treatment from the same American authorities. Wall Street Journal, in an editorial, noted that for Seoul, the incident signaled that a strategic partnership with the United States does not guarantee economic security. China, by contrast, is offering conditions that appear increasingly attractive, from cheap labor to large-scale subsidies in green energy and battery production. Of particular importance is China's role as the largest consumer market for South Korean goods. Unlike in the United States, where demand for Hyundai cars and Samsung electronics faces tough competition and political pressure, China is showing steady growth in consumption. Moreover, Beijing is openly interested in attracting new factories and is ready to provide land, tax holidays, and infrastructure projects in exchange for relocating production capacity. Insider Asia reports that Chinese provincial authorities have already begun talks with senior executives at Hyundai and LG. Industrial clusters in Zhejiang, Guangdong, and Shandong are being considered as potential sites. According to sources, The proposals include unprecedented support measures, reimbursement of factory construction costs, discounts on electricity, and even direct funding of research laboratories. Against this backdrop, international investors are closely watching the performance of South Korean stocks. Over the past 2 weeks, Hyundai shares on the Seoul Exchange have risen by more than 7%, while Samsung Electronics stock has gained 5%, reflecting market expectations that shifting production to China may turn out not to be a threat, but a new driver of growth. For the United States, however, such moves would be a painful blow. American states that actively courted South Korean corporations now risk losing tens of thousands of jobs. In Georgia, Alabama, and Texas, governors are already issuing stark warnings that the exit of Hyundai and Samsung will bring catastrophic consequences for their regional economies. CNN reports that the White House urgently convened a meeting with officials from the Commerce Department and Congress to discuss measures to retain investments. Among the options under consideration are new tax incentives and an easier visa regime for specialists. Still, analysts doubt these steps will reverse the trend. The issue goes beyond the immigration raid and lies in the broader climate of distrust. South Korean corporations see that the United States no longer guarantees stability and instead uses the economy as a tool of political pressure. In such circumstances, choosing China looks not like a political move, but a pragmatic one. Observers note that the consequences of this story may go far beyond US-Korea relations. If the trend of shifting production takes hold, in the coming years, the United States may face a massive outflow of investment not only from South Korea, but from other Asian countries as well. This would undermine Washington's plans to strengthen its own industry and call into question its initiatives on bringing jobs back. The situation has also triggered a strong reaction among US allies in Asia and Europe. In Tokyo, a heated debate has erupted. Japanese companies, including Toyota and Sony, are closely watching developments and wondering whether they might become the next targets of US immigration and trade policy. The newspaper Nikkei noted that distrust of Washington is growing in Japanese business circles, and business associations have already submitted a report to the government demanding risk diversification and stronger trade ties with China and ASEAN countries. In Europe, the reaction has also been significant. The German business journal Handelsblatt emphasized that the Hyundai scandal makes German carmakers question the reliability of the American market. According to sources in Brussels, representatives of Daimler and Volkswagen are already holding closed-door consultations about expanding their production capacity in East Asia rather than in the United States. The French newspaper Le Monde went even further, calling Washington's actions self-destructive since they are pushing Asian partners directly into China's arms. The geopolitical context should not be overlooked. China, seizing the moment, is actively promoting the idea of Asian industrial integration, urging South Korea, Japan, and ASEAN countries to build their own production chains without US participation. The Beijing-based newspaper Global Times declared in an editorial that America itself is pushing its allies to abandon the role of dependent players and to build an independent economic center of power. Such statements are now resonating more strongly in the region's business circles. And although officials in Seoul have so far refrained from harsh statements, the tone of leading media outlets and expert commentary speaks for itself. South Korea no longer views the United States as an unquestionable economic partner. If the decisions of the country's largest corporations are implemented, the autumn of 2025 may be remembered as the moment when the Washington-Seoul alliance first seriously faltered under the weight of its own contradictions.